We're just about to be live right about now. Here we go. It's Friday, May 2nd, 2025. Hello again.
Hello.
So I gave you a bunch of things we could talk about. Is there anything you want to discuss today?
I think it would be interesting to talk a little bit about the energy that we are experiencing. The new moon on the 27th of April was rather powerful,
Hmm.
and a new moon is a new beginning. So I know that the world is in a little bit of a frantic, chaotic time. Uh, Politically, there's a lot of unsettled issues. But personally, the new moon gives everybody an opportunity for a new beginning, a new way of thinking, a new way of being, a new way of experiencing life. And we go through these moon cycles every month. Some people are more impacted by them than other people. Uh, but the kind of power that we've been experiencing energetically from the planetary forces, I think is quite different than it's been before. And I attribute that in part to Pluto in Aquarius and the fact that um, we are entering an age of consciousness. And I think what we're seeing on a collective level is much more of the polarities of good and evil. And the Pluto in Aquarius is pushing a whole generation or a whole segment of society to be conscious, to be aware, to put spiritual before emotional values, and to put spiritual consciousness, which means love and compassion and understanding, before judgment. Now, that can be very badly misunderstood because love and compassion and acceptance does not mean letting go of integrity and values. And so, to the degree that people don't fully understand how to discern good from evil, they are wanting everything carte blanche to be accepted. And that is not consciousness. Consciousness requires very careful discernment. And when values are breached, standing up for truth. And I think that the Pluto in Aquarius has opened a door. So many people are waking up, and the people who don't wake up um, are having a hard time. They really are having a hard time. But the new moon, the end of April, I think is bringing in a new wave of optimism, of possibilities. And if we can stay connected to possibilities and to consciousness, we're going to be fine.
Nice. I Everything that you said there I've been feeling like for weeks, but thought I was going crazy. And I
And
see it.
that too.
What's that?
And that too.
Yeah.
You know, we're all a little crazy, Sean. And
Yeah.
uh, when I became a Reiki master, I was the 10th Reiki master made in the West. So I became a Reiki master in 1982, 10th Reiki master in the West.
Mhm.
At the time, when I told people about Reiki, they looked at me like I was crazy. And once I became a Reiki master, I gave Reiki to my siblings, to my mother at the time, to, people I loved, people in my family. And I explained to them what it was. And most of them looked at me like I was crazy and never bothered using it
Mhm.
because it wasn't part of the collective mainstream. And it took about 20 years for Reiki to get into hospitals and nursing homes and for Medicare to pay for Reiki treatments now. So I'm old enough to have seen the evolution of consciousness and
Mm.
to have been at the cutting edge of it my whole life. But we're still seeing people lagging behind the possibilities of healing and of consciousness and of one world peaceful.
Okay, perfect. So I had actually just written down in my notes talk about Reiki as like while you were talking earlier because I was this morning I had a bit of an epiphany or an experience and I wanted to run it by you. So I love that we're switching gears to that actually. So I got a bunch of questions. One, one observation. If I mention to people that I've got Reiki, uh, everyone responds, I do too. Like they all went and paid for a course and then forgot about it. It just seems like it's like every third person I mention it to. And then part of me is like a little bit like, ooh, which lineage is that? And I find myself judging, like, where did they get the Reiki from?
Well, you may not be judging, you may be discerning. Uh, I, as I said, was the 10th Reiki master maid. So, and my first class, I did meet Mrs. Takata. And when I first studied Reiki and met Mrs. Takata, there were three Reiki masters in the West. You did not become a Reiki master in Mrs. Takata's time without her inviting you.
Hmm.
In fact, um, early on, anyone could get first degree Reiki, but anyone could ask for second degree Reiki. And it was up to the teacher to judge whether or not they were responsible enough to have it.
Hmm.
Um, one of my colleagues asked Ethel Lombardi at the time if he could have second degree Reiki, and she refused him.
Hmm.
And I understood why. He wasn't the most ethical person in the world. Um, but once Barbara Ray, who Mrs. Takata gave the keys, along with her daughter, her granddaughter, Phyllis Furimoto, who became the Grand Master and preserved the lineage. But early on, Barbara Ray made becoming a Reiki master costs $10,000. If anyone listening has become a Reiki master and paid less than that, they didn't get the real Reiki.
Because that was the
The
term
Reiki
or
Alliance,
Mhm.
which is the lineage traced to Mrs. Takata, sets the price.
Mhm.
And to become a Reiki master is a lifelong commitment and it costs $10,000. And it requires a relationship with a Reiki master and understanding consciousness, understanding the transmission, taking it seriously, and not share it. Well, early on, we never shared Reiki symbols. They were not to be published.
Hmm.
They can be misused.
Hmm.
So I know the history of Reiki from the inside, as I do with human design. Um, and I know that when somebody is made a Reiki master in 2 days for $99, they are not really a Reiki master.
Hmm.
And they may or may not have gotten attunements that are actually accurate. And I've had enough experience with my students that if a student isn't using the symbols and stroking the symbols exactly the way they were designed to be drawn, the Reiki doesn't flow.
Hmm.
So I had one client, a young man, who believed that his use of marijuana in college one time destroyed his brain. Now, we know from recent research that people who use marijuana when they're less than 20 years old may have damage to their brain. And so at the time, we didn't have that data. And I worked with this young man, um, who at the time was a UCLA student. Um, it was, he was agonized. He said, I can't think. I can't think the way I used to think. And I worked with him for a number of years. He ultimately became a lawyer, but I don't know if he ever practiced. And he was saying that his second degree Reiki wasn't working. So I said, okay, let's go over it. And when I watched him do his symbols, he left out the symbol that accesses the unconscious, and he did it in the wrong sequence. So he did it and left it out of the treatment, which is why it wasn't working for him.
Hmm.
So with Reiki, you must do the symbols exact.
Hmm.
It is the most important part of second degree Reiki is getting the symbols exact and stroking them exact and saying them exactly the way they're meant to be said. And so there are many people who claim to be Reiki masters, who claim to have Reiki, and they do not have the real thing.
Hmm.
And it's in any field. Um, there's so much misinformation in the human design field, for example.
Hmm.
And the people who are studying under current teachers, human design, those teachers have misinformation.
Hmm.
Um, I think as a clinician and as a licensed professional, that it's malpractice for people to be coaching people without having been credentialed properly. You're playing with somebody's life.
Yeah. Yeah. Wow. There's so many ways we can go with this conversation. I want to come back to Reiki is an oral tradition, correct?
Yes.
I don't think I know what an oral tradition is then, because there was an oral element to it of it being explained to me, but it seems
Well, it's no longer an oral tradition
okay.
because there was someone who's still in the field who, unfortunately, in the early 80s, published the symbols.
Right. Okay.
And once the symbols got published, And I published them in my second degree Reiki book because I wanted the correct symbols
Hmm. Hmm.
to be out there. And the incorrect symbols were being used.
Hmm.
And I know that for a fact because I know the symbols that I use and the symbols I published in my book, I redrew them to be exact with stroking. But I also published in that book the originals that Mrs. Takata drew. So Mrs. Takata was the Grand Master. Um, I would not second guess what she did.
Yeah, I
And
would.
I had one student who sent me a document saying Mrs. Takata had this symbol wrong. No, Mrs. Takata was the Grand Master.
Hmm.
Reiki was disseminated using the symbols that Mrs. Takata used. I know they're real. I know they work because the first night when I did Reiki on my eyes, I could see without my glasses.
Right.
And at the time, I was very myopic to the point that if I was sitting at the computer and looking at the screen, I wouldn't have been able to see it.
Hmm.
So I knew the first day I had Reiki that something had been transmitted to my hands that could heal.
Hmm. Yeah, so that's where I wanted to go with this is the feedback that I get from my body at times. So I would definitely say that I can tell when I get the symbols wrong, or and it's you even captured it like sometimes I say it wrong in my mind. For some reason, the first one I end up flipping the two words, and I find myself it's kind of like wiping a whiteboard. I'm like, no, 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 that's not what I meant. And so then I proceed. So one thing that I picked up on this morning and so I'm still testing it. But it seems to me when I do the symbols here at Funky Town, standing on a grounding mat. So as you know, grounding mat goes into the ground wire, copper into the earth. So I'm basically well, not standing outside, but closer to outside than if I weren't. It's a stronger sensation when I activate them
Uh-huh.
so far. So I'm still experimenting with that. So I don't know if that's something you've even thought about or experienced. I know you don't like going outside because of the bugs. So it'd be like if you did the symbols standing on a grounding mat
I
versus,
don't experience any difference in myself from a grounding mat.
no, okay. I definitely do.
I mean, Marvin does, other people do. Um, Maybe because I have so little earth in my chart.
Mhm.
And um, I experience much more when I'm in the water than
Yep.
when I'm on earth. You know, when I go to swim, it's like I come home.
Hmm.
And I could swim endlessly.
Yeah.
I have a lap pool. I swim back and forth, back and forth. If I don't swim for 2 weeks or a month for some reason, and I get back in the pool, I don't lose any capacity to keep swimming. It's, as a child, I didn't swim. I only learned to swim as an adult because I was told to dive, to
Hmm.
scuba dive. And in order to scuba dive, I needed to learn to swim.
Hmm.
So I learned to swim as an adult. And then after I started TM, I went in 1 week, I went from swimming 8 laps to swimming 13 laps, which is how I knew TM worked. And I've been swimming ever since. And I swim every day I can swim. And
Okay.
do I love swimming? Absolutely not.
Hmm.
It's something that comes from deep inside of me. And, I think this is important for listeners that there are things you know because you know because you know. And they may not even be things you like. Like if somebody said to me, "Do you love swimming?" No, I don't love swimming. I am driven to swim because it does something I can't even explain. I know that when I'm in the pool, it's the only time I do not feel other people's energy. I'm alone
Hmm.
in the water with myself, and my body is moving, but it's silent. It is completely silent, and there's no other energy. So I can't even explain what happens when I'm done swimming, but there's a shift in my consciousness. And we each have that. You may have it with pickleball.
Well, I was going to comment, but I want to come. There's so much to unpack there. So you were, it was during transcendental meditation that you discovered not a passion, but a need to swim.
Oh, I had the need before,
Okay.
and the voice told me to scuba dive. And
Mm-hmm.
when I say voice, I'm not hearing a voice. It's an inner knowing that I call, it's the Holy Spirit is what it is,
Mm-hmm.
guiding me to do what I need to do for my higher self.
Mm-hmm.
So for some reason, the water, being in the water was important for me. And I, I mean, imagine living in Chicago in the middle of winter when it goes down to minus degrees, and I felt a drive to swim.
Mm-hmm.
Crazy.
Yeah, well, I mean, for me, lots of reasons. I've never enjoyed swimming. I had trauma around swimming. Uh, just, you push through it. So I'm standing on a grounding mat. I'm doing the symbols. I feel the choku rei, the spiral of it I'd call it my solar plexus. Seems above where the sacral is generally.
Hold on a second.
Yep.
Is he going for a walk?
Go pee and then come back.
Okay. Go on, Sean.
Yeah, the when I do the choku rei, and this is where I'm still experimenting, but it seems to be if I'm on a grounding mat. So I want to go outside and see if it's even more, right? But it was just kind of an experience that's happened a couple of times where it was like, that was interesting. But when I do the choku rei, I can feel the spiral portion of it in what I would assume is around my solar plexus area. Like it's above the navel, which, as far as energy goes, I guess I just kind of assume I don't know what I'm thinking
Maybe
with.
it's connecting the solar plexus and the heart.
Yeah.
And maybe it's also connecting to the splenic center
Hmm.
because your awareness is splenic.
Hmm.
It's not emotional.
Hmm. Yeah, it's definitely a physical sensation. So like I know you've mentioned before you do the symbols and sometimes it goes so fast, like it's right. Do
Oh,
you,
yeah.
is it a physical sensation or it's more atmospheric? Like do you feel it in your belly when you do it?
No, I don't feel things in my belly.
Hmm.
I
Well, neither
feel
do I usually. So that was a
I
surprise.
feel it. I feel it in my whole body.
Hmm.
I feel it um, generally if I tune in to the energy going through me. I feel a buzz. There's a constant frequency I feel. And I think I've commented in the past that it's um, that sensation of sort of a tingling all over my body. um, started in India. And I thought initially, how can I live this way? I feel this vibration almost like I'd be standing on my 3G cardio machine, the vibration plate,
Hmm.
and feeling a vibration. Or if I'm wearing my Apollo Neuro and there's a slight vibration, when I tune into my body, that's what I feel always. And so when I do my symbols, it strengthens that frequency.
Interesting. I've,
And
oh, go ahead.
it could be distracting. I mean, I thought in India, how can I live like this?
Hmm.
This is very distracting. And then I heard internally myself say, well, this is how you know you're aligned to a higher frequency. So it became home to me. Like if I stop, okay, do I feel the frequency? Yes. Okay, I'm aligned.
Interesting. I thought you were going to say alive because that was the sensation, like that was the what I came to a couple of days or weeks ago. It was like, oh, maybe this is the letting me know I'm here because I just always felt disconnected. So what aligned makes a lot of sense too.
Disconnected, what does that mean?
I don't know. I was gonna say it comes and goes, and that feeling I had actually previously attributed to doing qigong. Like it was more like moving energy, and so I think at times I'm having difficulty deciphering between the two. Uh,
Between what's the two?
well, oh, maybe it's the same thing. So that's but it's that vibration. I seem to have to cultivate it. Like even now, I'm standing on my little Bosu board, and I got interested in it for pickleball initially, wanted more movement with my ankles. But I remember reading or hearing that our hands and our feet are portals. So I was like, well, perfect. This is going to help open up the portals in my feet. And, as we were talking, I could just feel that vibration in my hands start to click in. But I had to kind of get the feet going, like I have to turn it on. I have to remember it or something. So,
Well, it's always on,
mhm.
just not attending to it.
Yeah, well, there's that. So, and I'm making a point of that more and more all the time. So, hmm. So what to do when the symbols are out there? I mean, it's kind of like with the human design thing, right? It's everywhere. It's social media. I'm sure it's in memes these days. And then as I said, I've mentioned to people like, yeah, I'm quite proud of my Reiki and the lineage. And then they're like, oh yeah, I've done it for 15 years. And I'm like, what's going like, why is everyone's got their Reiki, right? So
Well, they don't, a lot of people do not have real Reiki.
yeah. Well, and that's a shame ultimately because they're walking around possibly charging for it and or they paid for something that they put
Well, it's
faith.
like human design,
Hmm.
you know? I mean, I see that even in my classes, people who are still attached to human design
Hmm.
and they want to incorporate myself into the language of human design. It's not going to work.
Hmm. Well, and so maybe like certainly with Reiki, I guess if you haven't had a pure Reiki, you've just been told and given a certification for $100 that you've got it. I can say a lot of the people I've talked to in design, if they've been in it a few years, there's something about it that grabs you, even if it's not entirely correct or parts like whatever, it takes hold it in a deep, deep way. So it's quite the mind fuck. So
It's definitely a mind fuck.
yeah. Cool. Well, we've beaten that one to death. Playtime. So let's because these are a lot of fun topics. And honestly, there's more you want to say about Reiki, because I could ask more questions. Um,
I've seen profound healings with Reiki.
Mhm.
Um, I've seen it in work that Marvin's done with patients. One patient who had brain cancer and was in excruciating pain. And after several Reiki treatments and a Reiki attunement, um, he was out of pain. Um, Early on, I did some healing with some children who were pretty sick. Um, Mostly, I've taught Reiki. I've never been that interested in hands-on work with people. Um, all of my clients through the years have had Reiki. Um, and I've had direct feedback about using Reiki on myself.
Mhm.
Um, I broke my elbow rollerblading at one point, and it was a pretty bad break on my elbow. And the orthopedist said it would take at least 6 weeks to heal, more like 8. I healed it in 4. He could not believe it. When I said, I think you need to change the cast. And he said, no, it could. I said, please, I'm telling you, this cast needs to be changed.
Mhm.
And when they took the cast off and did an x-ray, it was mostly healed. Then I broke my upper arm in 3 places uh, when the dogs pulled me over. And I gashed my head. Um, And I healed that one also in less than 4 weeks. And the orthopedist said to Marvin when he went in for something, how's your wife doing? She healed her arm in record time. I don't know how she did that.
Mhm.
So I've seen Reiki work. Um, my stepfather, who was pretty elderly at the time, was diagnosed with lung cancer. And he was in the hospital, and I walked in and he said, will you do what you do for me? He didn't even know what it was.
Mhm.
Just, can you put your hands on me and make me feel better? So I've had multiple experiences using Reiki as a healer and seen it do pretty wonderful things.
Mhm. Yeah, it's feedback and evidence, right? Like my parents' dog, Monty, had hurt his back really badly. Like he spun around or something, and he was basically kind of immobilized for a bit. They took him to the vet. The vet said he's either going to get better or he won't, which is super useful advice for. I just said, Mom, do you want me to do some Reiki on him? Like, are you open to me? And then so I had to like ask permission. And so I went and saw Monty for 2 or 3 days in a row. And I was giving Reiki, but I was also massaging, right? I could feel intuitively where to push. And I'm
Right.
starting to realize that I can do that. Um, and he's totally fine now. And he adores me, right? Like he looked at me at one
Yeah,
point.
the animals love Reiki.
Yeah. Well, and I think he recognized, yeah, I was going to say, for a second there, I thought he recognized that I helped him, but no, he recognized the Reiki. He recognized the energy frequency. Oh, okay, that makes more sense. But they do like look at me in the eye sometimes, like just like, whoa, dude, what was that? So I know, like, I get more feedback from animals. Let's put it that way. Um,
They're much more innocent than people.
for sure. Yeah, well, basic needs, right? Shelter and food and hmm.
Well, I know from my cats, as you saw, Luke came up and wanted to be held.
Mhm.
And he does that uh, usually around 3 o'clock is when he comes on my desk and won't take no for an answer.
Mhm.
And all he wants is
Mhm.
to be held, for me to look him in the eye, to kiss him, to tell him I love him.
Yeah.
And I think he's telling me to take a break.
Hmm. Yeah, I'm definitely paying more attention to the dogs lately. Still hard to read, but I'm getting there. Everything for sure seems to be a frequency. Like I've got the hydrogenized water thing, right? The pets prefer it. I've noticed. I will use it to put water in their water bowl.
Mhm.
Our cat, in fact, there's always a glass of water in our bathroom. That's her hangout, and it'll just sit there until I pour a bit out, and even just from the tap, pour fresh water in. She seems to prefer or
An
know she
old
needs fresh.
time vet told me early on when with Noble, that cats like fresh water because it has more oxygen in it. So you're
Yeah,
just confirming that.
it's like I know I was onto something with that. Did I ever tell you? I think it's called Celtic salt. I take a pinch of Celtic salt in the morning, and I'm guilty of not remembering the woman's entire presentation, but uh, it was like a 20-minute long video. But right in the middle, she sort of said, like, if there's one thing you do, take a pinch of Celtic salt in the morning. So that was like, bing, got it. And because it costs next to nothing to buy. But her comment was, this salt opens up the oxygen in your cells, meaning you can get more. I took it as more data or a clearer channel.
I use Himalayan uh, s- natural salt,
Hmm.
and I get the chunks of it, and I put it in a bowl of water, and it makes Sol. And Sol is pH appropriate for the body. So I start my morning with a teaspoon of salt and water every day.
So you make your own cocktail. You take water, you put Himalayan salt, the chunks, but then in the morning you have a glass from that. Is that what you're saying?
I don't have a glass of water from that. I have water with a teaspoon
Oh, a teaspoon. Okay.
of the salt solution in my water.
Okay.
And it's pH precise for the body.
Mhm. Hmm.
Doing that about 20 years.
Well, yeah, I've been doing it.
Because and all, prior to that, my blood tests were always low in sodium.
Yeah, I don't remember what I was looking for at the time, but it's been about 6 months, and now I won't miss it. I
Yeah,
can't necessarily tell. Like I just know it's been working, but I don't have any evidence. I don't, I didn't at the time think of recording something before and after. It was just knew that it's what I needed. So, hmm. Okay, well, cool. Let's keep talking about water because this. I was. I think it's the term was christened, and I think I'm pretty sure I told you that we didn't go to church. Like we went to like a Protestant church 3 times is in my memory. Um, Funny enough, the pastor and the minister lived like right around the corner, so I would see him every day. So like I knew him more as I don't remember I was 8, but just waving at him. Um, so I was christened. I asked my mother recently why I was christened, and her answer was I was hedged. We were hedging our bets, which is not the answer I was expecting. So so that led me down, and then um, one thing I've really appreciated, and I think others would benefit hearing in one summary, maybe. And also, like when I talk to people about it, I find that this is one of the more compelling parts. Is I have to say, like especially someone that's familiar with human design or astrology, they've already got some preconceived notions. So I have to like rein it back into this is why this is different. And like that was one of the things that really caught my attention, I think, early on was the correlation of the different imprinting and then the different societies or ethnicities and their traditions, right? And we've been talking about Reiki and it being a tradition. So I got two questions, I guess. One, tell me more about christening, and is it the same as baptism? Because they involve water, I guess, a little bit. One's dunking, I think, and the other one's like a drop or something. And then what is the significance of it, the importance of it? And then which imprint is that? In my mind, I think you're going to tell me spiritual just based on based
Yeah.
on listening to myself describe it. So interesting. Yeah. So I'm going to bring up my chart if that's okay. And this is one that I think I sent it to you. I modified it a little bit in that I really highlighted for myself the which world, like, and sort of I noticed that you kind of when you talk about it, there is kind of you go in an order. It's almost like
You
one.
have it in the wrong order.
Oh, do I?
Yes, 5 and 6 are reversed.
Oh, okay. Well, that's good to know. Um, Funny enough, that's not an area that I find myself drawn to yet. So perfect correction. I'll fix that. But so I bring this up because a lot of folks may not even know what I'm talking about here. But when you put this together, there was careful consideration for, like, it was drawn from your experience and your knowledge of these various.
No,
No? Okay.
no, no. What happened was I was given chart 1, which is the human design chart,
Yeah.
and I was given the calculation for the dream design,
Okay.
which is 88 lunar degrees prior to birth rather than solar degrees prior to birth. And if you go to the Triple Design Matrix book that I did with Ra, we talked about the prenatal solar, the prenatal lunar, and we talked about the solar being in a 15 gate horizontal matrix, as well as the lunar being in a 15 gate horizontal matrix. So the what Ross said and what Ra also had was he had the mental world, he had the spiritual world, and he had the matrix for the physical world.
And can I ask one point of clarity? Because I feel like I always get this wrong. And again, your work is different. But the dream world is closest to the spiritual as far
Yes.
as that was the correlation at the time. Okay.
Well, let's um
You want to share your screen, Tim?
um I'd rather explain this without the image.
Okay. Uh, Zoom. Oh, there we go.
So the viewers can see the charts. They have, the image in their mind now.
Hmm.
Um, when Ra gave me the information, everything the voice told him, I also had access to all of Ra's images. And the he only looked at the lunar design as a 15 gate on its side matrix. He never looked at it upright the way I'm showing it.
Mhm.
And he was not an astrologer. He knew nothing about astrology. Um, I was trained as an astrologer. And probably most importantly in the development of the material is the fact that I had learned to do charts by hand.
Mhm.
So I knew how to calculate. I wasn't working with a computer program. I was working with how to calculate something by hand, not asking a computer to do it. And so I began working with the sleep and dream design. They're two different things. And if what the voice told Ra was when we sleep, we move into a different matrix. We move into a mammalian matrix. And it's calculated at 88 lunar degrees before birth. And that's the dream design. So if that's a dream design, where's the sleep design? Because in sleep, we have layers. We have light sleep. We have dream sleep. We have deep sleep. When you're in deep sleep, you're almost comatose. In the sleep literature, DeWitt said, um, when you are in deep sleep, you're as comatose as you could be and still be healthy. So I needed that calculation. And I already had been given the 33 gate matrix, but I didn't know how to calculate it. So I used my astrological expertise to recognize that in any chart, we have degrees, we have minutes, and we have seconds. So I used that to calculate. I said, okay, if the solar calculation is our waking and the lunar is our dream, then it must mean that if we want to take the waking to the next level of understanding in terms of emotional awareness, maybe it's solar minutes, not solar degrees. Maybe if it's not lunar degrees, it's lunar minutes, because logically it would make sense.
Mhm.
And so I was sitting with Eric Memmert. He was modifying the program for me to be accurate. And I asked him to do those calculations, those four: solar, solar minute, lunar, lunar minute. And he did them. And I looked at the four charts I got and I went, holy shit, this explains everything.
Mhm.
It explained the timing of pre-birth developmental times that I knew from the field of developmental psychology. 3 months before birth, the cortex becomes impressionable. That means if a woman is pregnant and is playing music for her baby, the baby will not respond to it if it's only played in the first 2 trimesters of pregnancy. But if you play it in the 3rd trimester of pregnancy, the baby will respond to it after it's born. Fact. Developmental. The cortex begins to function and register information in the 3rd trimester of pregnancy.
Mhm.
Physiologic. A week before birth, we know that the woman's hormones change. We know that the soul enters the fetus. There's a baby there.
That's a week before the soul enters the fetus?
And it's when the baby drops.
Okay.
So developmentally, the baby drops. Something's happening physiologically. 2 days before birth is the solar minute calculation. And that's when the woman's body is ready. The baby's in the birth canal and or is dropped, and the woman begins to feel Braxton Hicks contractions, more contractions getting ready for delivery.
Mhm.
Um, an hour and a half and an hour and a half after birth, an hour and a half before birth is transition in labor. When I had my children, I didn't have any anesthesia or sedation. I wanted to do it completely naturally. And I realized that the painful part of labor, when the baby is actually moving through the birth canal, is pretty quick.
Mhm.
It's at that point that the delivery of the baby is an ecstatic experience beyond what you can imagine as an orgasm.
Mhm.
It is that much more intense, more profound. Um, and women are being robbed of that experience. I mean, it's really tragic.
When you say that, you mean because they're taking
They
medicine to,
hate it. They
yeah,
don't feel it.
yeah.
You
But
know, the childbirth is a very natural, easy process for the most part. And, you know, the culture, Western culture, has found a way to make it not a natural process. So I knew those stages from my own pregnancies.
mhm.
And I also know developmentally that, and well, in the field of consciousness, it's always as above, so below, past, present, future. And I knew developmentally the first 3 months of life are critical. So for the fun of it, I figured, okay, past, present, future. What happens if I do the postnatal calculations? They tracked developmental times.
Mhm.
An hour and a half after birth, which is 5, the lunar minute calculation. So fix your illustration.
Yeah.
An hour and a half after birth, the baby's breathing on its own. It's an independent entity. 2 days after birth, what happens? Colostrum turns to milk. The mother, at 2 days after delivery, should have attached to the baby. I know that it's physiologic. I know from my own experience of it that when a woman feels that bond on a physiologic level with her baby, there's no separating them. And for me, I was holding my son right after my delivery. I had gained 12 pounds when I was pregnant. So I was as thin after delivery as before. I had no stomach.
Mhm.
And I'm looking at my baby and tracing, okay, I remember him being born. I remember, and I'm supposed to feel something for this baby. And I'm thinking, okay, it's a baby.
Yeah.
And then I sent him back to the nursery and I stood up and I went to wash my hands and I saw myself crinkle my forehead. And Charles had crinkled his forehead.
Oh, okay. Mhm.
And I could feel the release of the hormones, literally. And I heard a baby crying. And I thought, if he doesn't stop crying, I'm going. I'm going to get my baby. They cannot let my baby cry. It was a physiologic response of attachment.
Mhm.
because I could see the baby as an extension of myself. It was like we were one person,
Hmm.
but we were two people. And so that bond between mother and baby is physiologic. And if nothing else, it happens at 2 days of age when the milk comes in. Then a week after birth is when spirit comes in. And I knew from Judaism that there's a bris at 7 days. I know in Catholicism there's baptism. I know that in Aborigine cultures, in many of them, they don't name the baby for a week. And when I was a child, generally, people were not allowed to see the baby for a week because it was not stable. So in long ago time, people knew that for the first week of a baby's life, the soul isn't fully anchored. And it takes that week for the soul to really incarnate in that baby. I mean, it's already there, but it's almost like it's not awakened.
Hmm.
It's not sure that it really wants to be in this soul.
Mm. Mm.
Um, so I knew from being a cultural anthropologist and a sociologist that the timing of the postnatal were tracking. And then at 3 months of age, big developmental shift. If a baby does not reach for an object at 3 months of age, you worry about it. It's choice. Now, Ra's first mistake was saying there's no choice
Mm.
because we know very clearly that when a baby reaches at 3 months of age, it has choice. Do you want this toy or this toy? Do you want this person or this person? And babies have very clear preferences for who holds them, who looks at them, who they smile for, who they coo for. They're who they are at 3 months of age. There's no getting away from it. You have two kids.
Hmm.
I'm sure you knew really early how different the two of them were.
Oh, for sure. Yeah.
The personality, it's not a single factor. It's multifactorial. And that's what the noble energy maps show.
Mhm.
How does development continue to 3 months of age when the baby begins to interact with its environment as an independent being? Now, it's not independent. We have the 50-27. We're custodians for the next generation. And it comes from the splenic center.
Mm.
In the four matrices, I'll share my screen. I'll show you.
And while you're doing that, just a comment, like I actually read again I think it was in the Black Book because I've been starting to read through it. And Ra talked about he had no choice. And you said that before on the podcast. Like maybe the whole no choice thing was he had no choice and it became emblazoned on a hat. And that,
I think, let me find the illustration I want to show, and then I will tell you what I think of that.
mhm.
Four worlds. Let's see, four world matrices. Here we go. Making it small enough so that people can see it. Okay, let me share my screen. Okay, so these are the worlds. And what's important to note in the four worlds is that the mental world and the physical world are the only two worlds that have the solar plexus.
Mhm.
Emotions are of this world. On a spiritual level, we do not have emotions. We have love, we have compassion, we have consciousness, but we do not have emotional reactivity. And I do it as a vertical, a vertical, because I want to show that there are transits in charts. So I'm going to stop the share. And when, I can understand the no choice thing, because I tried to get away from human design from the time I knew that Ra was a scoundrel, um, until 2022. No matter how often I pulled away, somebody would always pull me back and keep me involved. And when Ra asked for Marvin and me to validate it scientifically, I had pulled back and I wanted no relationship with him. And I knew there was something in the body graph that was important.
Mhm.
If I look at my own life and, my education and my clinical experiences and my role as a high-level professional in my field, the last thing in the world I needed was human design. I had a highly successful clinical practice, and I was certainly a student of consciousness and astrology and esoteric stuff. But human design was compelling because it was an astrologically based system that seemed to have some truth to it.
Mhm.
The truth did not fully emerge until the four worlds. And I don't think anyone could have developed it without the background that I have. Because I knew astrology, I knew consciousness, I knew developmental sequences, I knew anthropology and other cultures. It's all part of my training. So when I did the calculations and I was already doing the science, and I knew that things were not showing up that Ross said should show up. So if a system isn't working, I couldn't fudge the data
Mhm.
ethically. I had to expand the system to be consistent with the science. And it is consistent with the science. So we have the timing astrologically that holds up, prenatal and postnatal. We have the developmental sequences physiologically, psychologically, anthropologically, and statistically. So I'm about to publish the book of the statistics.
Oh, cool. Yeah.
My assistant is working on putting it into publishable form, and I will release it as a real book, not as a PDF.
So many questions. Um, the soul a week before was new to me, and you talked about the. I think you said you believe the soul lives in the sacral center, right? Did I?
According to the tree of life.
Or to the tree of life? Okay. Yeah. I mean,
The tree of life, in the tree of life, um, it is hypothesized that the soul is anchored at the base of the spine,
mhm.
and the Kundalini rises up the spine. Have you ever had an experience like that? Where
Yeah,
it's going up the spine?
yeah, fairly regularly lately. It,
Like the caduceus,
hmm?
the caduceus, the medical symbol of the
Oh yeah,
snake.
yeah.
What do you think that is?
No, I just didn't know it was called the caduceus actually. But yeah, I've rabbit holed that one quite a bit. Yeah, the way you just described it, that's the root of the Kundalini, right? So I guess it's just why is the soul in the sacral? It's
It's a,
funny. I think of it like bottom to top.
it's a sleeping serpent.
Mhm.
It is, think about it. In a baby, it cannot be fully awakened because physiologically they're not ready.
Mhm.
So the potential is there, but it needs to interact. And according to the 32nd path in the tree of life, the administrative intelligence, the statement is that we live in four worlds and that the spirit comes through us, that we are light bodies incarnating in physical form. And then the 31st path of intelligence, from the root to the splenic center, is saying we are here incarnating, but our task is not physical. Our task is to bring spirit through the physical.
Okay.
And therein is where many people get stuck.
Yeah. Now you've got me wanting to ask about class on Wednesday, because we were talking about the 31st path. And I think I told you this before we started recording, but like the night before, I kind of had this like, oh shit, I'm gonna die. Like it seemed like news to me somehow, right? It was just this weird like, oh man. But it was like kind of an acceptance. But then the next morning I'm in class and you're talking about the path to immortality, and then my brain's like, wait a second, what's going on? Because, and I've said this to you before, and you've even kind of responded differently than other people do. But like for whatever reason, maybe 4 years ago, I went from being someone that was a little superstitious to being not superstitious in any of those old ideas. And to all of a sudden verbalizing, like saying, I want to live to 150, maybe even 300. In fact, it would mostly be like, I plan to live to 150. You know, I don't have control over buses and things like that, but like if I can do something about it, and then I would always follow it up with, well, you know, actually, I'd like to live to 300. Like that's actually what I really mean. And I
Why
mean,
not?
exactly, right? But then, but immortality, I always took that to mean as living forever, and as a light body or as a soul, we do, or it does. Is that me? I don't know. Um, yeah, but I think I hold hope that the physical body could last much longer. And clearly there's evidence of people doing it in the past. Um, I even said, like, I'm not going to be that guy that lives on top of a mountain wearing a burlap sack, you know, like I'm just not going to be that guy. So I'm kind of determined to do it where I'm at and with what I've got. But like I'm driven by that somehow. Um, so yeah, So what does immortality mean as far as the 31st path?
You know, um, in my first major Kundalini experience, I was asking the question of what am I afraid? And the answer was death. Why? Because at the moment of death, there's a pause. And in that pause, you have all knowledge. And you remember being an incarnating soul. And then you forget. So the pain of death is not the pain of loss. It's a forgetting that you are.
Oof, there you go.
So the task of each incarnation is remembering who you really are, which transcends time and space.
Hmm. That brings up many questions and thoughts. Uh,
Hold on a second.
sure.
Why- My dog puffing. Why is he puffing?
We just came in. We thought we were outside. He has a collar.
Okay.
He drank water.
Okay. Okay, I'm back. Dog is okay.
This is what I'm thinking about right now. And I think I've mentioned it to you before in various forms, but and sorry, I keep dragging you into the human design world. I think I'm one of those people that just keeps coming back and bringing it to you. But like, I think what helped me find you was design. Like I probably wouldn't have found you otherwise.
Right?
At the time, Orion, who you've met, or around the time, he had a video and he was talking about incarnation crosses. Again, not your work. Um, but there's something he said in it that kind of like clicked, and it was kind of like this start of a compass. And so it was the incarnation path of the Sphinx. And I honestly think that's kind of what helped triangulate me to find you. And then I got an upgrade, right? And that's kind of how I view it. And in a lot of my charts, they're either Sphinx or Maya, as far as the patterns. And I remember asking, like, I don't even understand what the Maya, like, it's Maya this, Maya that. So to me, it seems to be energy, dark matter. It's the unseen. Um, and it is Reiki and hypnosis and all these other disciplines that been um, you've actually studied, and I just bumble into, which is so frustrating for me. Good, but so like, and here we are, and yeah, it's fascinating to me. Like when the idea it's not no choice, but it's like following. I don't
Well,
know.
there's choice and there's choice. It depends what you mean by it.
Hmm.
And I certainly feel like what I'm doing with work does not leave me alone.
Hmm.
I get downloads, I get, people say to me, how do you do all the things you do? Because I'm not using my energy to do it. It's coming through me. It's not me doing it per se. But if I look, for example, at the trajectory of my life, I can see the orchestration that is bigger than who I am.
Hmm.
And it's not me doing it. It's a force coming through me. And I'm very grateful. I love what I do. I always say I never worked a day in my life. And I've never really, other than teaching college, I never really worked for anyone.
Hmm.
Um, and even I had one job after teaching as a sex therapist at a hospital. And I set my own hours and I did it, as long as it was ethical. And then I stopped.
Mm.
My therapy partner uh, started falling asleep in sessions. He was not a therapist. He was a OBGYN doing sex therapy with me at a hospital in Chicago. And when he really was not contributing, I quit.
Mm.
Um, so I never really worked a job. And I followed where spirit led me. And to this day, I mean, yes, I have the charts, and yes, I have noble energy maps, and they are profound. But the real work is the four worlds.
Mm.
And it's the knowledge that we are not living without soul. And that in order to be happy, people need to live from their soul
Mm.
and be who they are and express who they are. And it's not a formula, and you do have choice within boundaries.
Mm.
I mean, Ra's no choice, I think, came out of him feeling compelled to share the body graph. And he certainly was not qualified to know what it was
Mm.
fully.
Yeah.
And he felt in over his head. And he was in over his head. I'm very grateful to what Rob brought. Um, and I know it's not a complete system.
Mm. Yeah. Well,
I know at this point that human design is a cult.
yeah, and well, it's language like that that's difficult for others to hear, I know. And like, what is a cult? A cult is a leader at the top. Like that leader's gone.
A cult is a system that is closed to new input.
Mm.
And the human design community does not want to have the science, the truth of what holds and what doesn't hold scientifically. And when you have a system that will not allow for input or change, it's a closed system. And we could say that many political systems are cults.
Oh yeah. Yeah. So every religion. So yeah, no, yeah. It's funny, it's such a triggering word, cult. Um Interesting. So
Well, let's define a cult. It expects people to think and behave a certain way.
mhm,
And anything outside of that makes people angry.
mhm. I think that's where the pushback would come from design, because it's always been about being yourself and finding yourself. And so it's always like it's your experiment. So that's the part that doesn't, like, I absolutely,
It's an experiment, but if you tell somebody in design that the experiment is not working for them, they get angry.
yeah. But there's a number of people that believe the experiment is working for them, right? And in
Absolutely.
right, and the longer they're with it, the deeper it goes. So yeah, no, I'm with you. I am. um, hmm.
I am not and will not be part of the human design community.
Mhm.
Human design is not my work.
Mhm. Yeah.
Although I am doing a lecture on Tuesday for the body graph people, and I will talk about human design and parenting and how to use it appropriately.
Yeah, that's next week, eh?
Mhm.
I'll try to get internet access in Hornby because it's that well. Let's what Raw and or the human design community did is ran with concepts, right? Like composites and things, and it's an area that I think a lot of people are interested in, and it's area that it'll be good that you're doing that next week, like to kind of take it back to a different approach, and also from someone that is a practitioner, like relationships. If you were a sex therapist and young,
I
like
was
all.
also I was also an expert in child development. I did a lot of my postdoc at the Children's Day School at Rush Presbyterian St. Luke's Hospital in Chicago. And I asked all the parents of the children in the day school, was your child a planned pregnancy? And all the children at the day school were unplanned pregnancies. And nobody was interested in that research.
Mm-hmm.
Isn't that interesting?
Mm-hmm. I was listening to something about boomers the other day, and just like the fact that the baby boom, it was kind of manufactured to, the I don't remember enough about it. I just remember it being a very interesting statistic. DMT, you described when you gave birth, you had this experience better than an orgasm, and I know from listening to other people and actually my own experience once with DMT, it's otherworldly. Like it's just, and it seems to be that sort of point in the brain where I've heard that it's also the same thing if someone's in a near life accident, like you're in a car accident and you have a near life experience or near death experience, or I guess interesting I said near death experience. That they have, like they just kind of like have that moment. And while you were describing it, I was laughing to myself because Wendy had that moment with both our kids, but she didn't know that that's the moment she wanted. What happened was for the first birth, we were in Bermuda, and the nurses left her alone for a while. And I guess she went from 2 centimeters to 8, and they came in and she was like gripping the curtains, right? And so they were like, too late for the epidural, we're going. And in traditional Sean fashion, it was 4 a.m. They called me to say, "Hey, your wife's gone into labor," because they sent me home. And for whatever reason, I remember someone saying, "Make sure you eat. You're there and present." So I like the scene was me making a sandwich at 4 a.m. when I should have been on my scooter zipping to the hospital to find her. So probably shouldn't have told her that part because that didn't get me any brownie points. But at the time, that was like I was supposed to eat. I was supposed to have energy there. So she ended up having Samantha or Sam with no epidural. So she had the full experience. And they do have a bond that I can't seem to not penetrate, but I just feel like an outsider. Still kind of do. And then with our son, she wanted to have an epidural for whatever reason again, she couldn't, but they were going to give her gas. And the hose fell off. So the whole birth, we were all laughing and giggling, like we were all getting high, and she was like not happy about it at all. So like even like with her, she was trying to bypass it and experience it again, right? So yeah, it's fascinating. Um, but yeah, it is something that she has a bond with the kids that I can't seem to have, and it's apparent. It's
Think
apparent.
about it. A man plants a seed
Hmm.
and he's gone for
Hmm.
9 months. No experience of that child except indirect.
Hmm.
A woman has the seed planted and she is in touch with that being for those 9 months.
Hmm.
And they are a part of her body.
Yeah.
They're a part of her life. And then the baby's born. And the hormones connect and attach. A man never gets that.
Hmm. Yeah, no, when I think about that time too, like everything was going wrong. There was just all sorts of outside factors. And then Wendy has this bonding experience with Sam that I don't think we ever really recovered from for a long time. You know, I had gone from being we just were on adventures, including ending up in Bermuda and having this amazing job, and I was flying around the world, and then daughter was on the way, and I definitely turned into like safety Bob. You know, it was like secure a job. You know, it was just like caveman instincts. Um, but the problem was the person I was working for at the time was he was just an asshole, and he was dishonest, and you know he literally had me um, so frustrating. One was I was in charge of hiring people for his team that he wanted to grow. And one person that came along, I was like, no way, like this person is evil. And he hired him anyways. And at that point, I was like, I can't work here if you're gonna put me in charge of that. Like that was my like I had to leave. But when you're in Bermuda, in this tiny country, and you're on a visa or a work permit, and you're a really high-end quality consultant that everybody knows in a tiny, it's basically a tiny town. um, you know, he said the only way you can stay here is if you become a hairdresser. Like that would be the only permit that he would approve for me. And unfortunately, his wife, her father was the Surgeon General of Bermuda, so they also had clout. um, so I was going through all that. I was trying to like keep our home, trying to maintain integrity, trying to make sure we could pay the bills, and I was just getting hit by all this stuff. Meanwhile, he was a churchgoer and kept saying to me, "It's great. I go to church on Sunday, I get all my sins released, and I just start over Monday." And I was like, "Well, if that's religion, count me out,
Not it.
right?" So I was like, that was going on while my wife's having this bond with this baby, and meanwhile, my life, my soul, my spirit was being snuffed out. Like it just and then that was a 20-year 25-year run. So and here I am kind of on the outside of that, right? The kids are grown. I'm talking to you about all this stuff. You know, it's just like this, like the astrology of that probably is pretty interesting as well, like the timing of it. So
You
yeah,
can
it never
always go back
me.
and look at it.
Yeah, I'd have to really think about I'd have to pinpoint that time frame. I know it would have
Well, you
been
know when your daughter was born?
yeah. And I remember making decisions. There was so much at the time. 9/11 had just occurred. Wendy was like 6 months pregnant. I was supposed to fly home to Victoria to be the bridesmaid at her best friend's, or not bridesmaid, maid of honor at her best friend's wedding. It was the day after 9/11. So she wasn't flying. So there was that stress and trauma and letting her best friend down. And yeah, what a time. We were in Manhattan 3 weeks, maybe 6 weeks after it happened, because we had planned a guys' weekend. The tickets were bought, and like we ended up like 2 blocks away for breakfast, and there was still dust in the air and all that stuff. But I remember also going into a bookstore. So Wendy's 6 months pregnant, and I picked up a Dr. Seuss book, and I just had this moment like, oh shit, you know, I need to not screw this kid up. Like up until that, I was worried about 10 fingers, 10 toes. And for some reason, it was like I picked up the book and I was like, no, that's not, you know, that's the easy part.
True. That is the easy part.
Right? But that's the part that I find most people are stressed about is just like the arrival of the, you know, is it going to be here and be normal so their life isn't disrupted? It's almost that kind of perception, right? So, yeah, just really, it's all flashing back. Hmm. Yeah. Anyways, I don't have any questions. I just need to share that. So, um, how you doing for time? We're clocked in at our 90 here. Are you swimming today?
I am going to swim, and um, I usually do a free reading Friday, and my VA was going to confirm the appointment, and the person asked about rescheduling, and there was a miscommunication. So he called me about 20 minutes late, and I said, "Can we talk later? Because I don't have time now." So I'm going to do the free Friday reading at 3 o'clock my time, which is 45 minutes from now.
Okay.
I'll swim.
All of a sudden, I'm brought to a question though, because you're meeting more and more people doing these readings, right? So you're always gaining data and statistics. I I feel like I've heard you say on occasion the composite body graph. The statistically, most people are a single definition manifesting generator. So I'm
Right.
not. So I'm always hearing like I'm always seem to be looking for like where is it different? So is that significant? Is that no? It's just statistically that's kind of
You
how.
are who you are.
Yeah.
And I think when I say to people, 99% of the population are manifesting generators at 3 months of age, and they're here to manifest their full potential. That is a absolutely accurate scientific statement.
Mhm.
That regardless of your design, regardless of whether you're a single definition, a split definition, whatever, in composite, people are here to manifest their full potential. Every baby, normal baby,
Mhm.
is here to manifest their full potential. And yes, do people come in with issues or problems? Yes. And that's part of their incarnation in this lifetime.
Mhm.
Each of us comes in with a life purpose. I can see the life purpose in noble energy maps. And it's very interesting that so many people want to know their life purpose and ask about it. What is my life purpose? Which tells me that the culture is failing,
Mhm.
that we are not encouraging people to know who they are at the core of their being. We're not looking at children and asking the child, who are you and how do you want to manifest? We're more imposing structure upon them. I don't think that's what the culture should be doing.
I agree. I think what we're at though is a precipice of because I think I did it was purpose comes from your job, your work, what you're known for.
Mental world.
Well, for sure. And a lot of people are losing their jobs over AI. So people are losing what they believe is their purpose, which ends up causing depression and it can gut you out. I think that's kind of what happened to me for a while there. I've been highly technical for 30 years and I could see that I was going to have a hard time. Like I was either going to have to become a programmer
So
and
Sean, have you decided what you want to do next?
I'm just such a hard question, but I am just trying to not be. I recognize that people are observing me, and as uncomfortable as it is, I feel the need to show people that I'm more than my job. Um, and yeah, I don't know how to put that into better words, but I do recognize. Um, Someone said to me the other day, and he seemed to be kind of channeling it. He said, my purpose was here is to hold the light." And to me, that was like, well, it's not everybody's purpose, right? So I was like, well, because that can't be mine then. But I think that I do find myself wrestling with that. I love playing the drums, but on my terms, you know? I don't enjoy practicing. I love playing pickleball. I don't enjoy practicing. There's a theme there. Technology is agonizing because I can pretty much solve any problem, but not everyone has the budget or the care around security to do it right. And so no matter what, I always seem to be blamed for someone else's decision making. And I kind of experienced it yesterday with a new friend who I begrudgingly have been helping with technical, but ended up being like such an informing exercise yesterday. I just was patient, and that's really what she needed. And you know, I solved 20 problems, but for whatever reason, at the end, she was upset about a single Word document through this whole process. And in the past, I could feel myself handling it differently. I was like, wait, hang on a second. I just literally took you 12 years into the future with your technology. I've solved all these problems, and you're hung up on this. Like, that's not okay. It was so uncomfortable, even just saying that, you know, because this lovely woman, she's been super helpful, but for whatever reason, I didn't feel like I could say, like, that's not okay. But I did, and it was really uncomfortable. And then I got a lovely note from her last night. So it's so difficult in the moment to stand up for myself still, especially when
But you did.
I did, and I did with my dad yesterday too. Super uncomfortable, but I'm just doing it now. And it's something you said earlier today too about it was about the emotional matrix. I feel disconnected in a way from my emotions. I'm way more emotional as far as how others perceive me. In fact, people seem to, I think I've said this before, people seem to get excited if my voice trembles. It's almost like they just like are holding court and they're like, oh, he's gonna cry. Like I can just feel it. So I don't want that to be my super skill. So, but I recognize it. I can see it. I can sense it. So I'm still just trying to figure out what I'm supposed to do with that. So yeah, so it's like I could be good at a lot of things, but so far I seem to be good at trying new things. Um,
Well, the important thing is that you do what you love and you love what you do.
yeah,
So that's what you need to be looking for.
yeah, and I'm getting there. It's been really hard to trust that with the financial blows and all the other distractions, to trust in that process. Um, but I think, yeah, I definitely feel like I'm on the other side of it now. And I'm about to spend 6 days on Hornby Island, which is this spectacular place, apparently. It's 2 ferry rides away, not a lot of internet. And it's for a blues camp. So I got a little scholarship and I get to go play drums for 6 days. I have not wanted to go because I would say, like, I'm not a blues drummer. It's not really my thing. But I kind of am. There's a lot of feeling in blues. It really, you know, and
Give yourself over to it like a meditation.
mhm. Yeah, I've come to that conclusion. I am going there this week to just enjoy it and learn from it. And I think I'm ready for it. Something like that in the past, I would have needed 10 other projects. You know what I mean? And I would just be like biding my time. But yeah, I'm just really going to lean into it. So it's funny that the timing is right now based on everything else. It's like
So now we're not going to do a podcast next week, is that correct?
yeah, I think definitely not. I say, you know, I'm not sure I'll be able to do class depending on what the internet situation is, but
Okay.
and I might just purposely go off the grid for 6 days. That might be good for me. I won't have any pets to meditate with, so I'll have to go find some wildlife.
Just stay safe.
Oh yeah, yeah, that should be a pretty safe place.
Good.
Cool.
Okay, so let's wind up.
All right, perfect. Let's hit the button here, which is right